The 10 basic human rights outlined in the Declaration are the right to equality, freedom from discrimination, right to life, liberty, and personal security, freedom from slavery, freedom from torture and degrading treatment, the right to recognition as a person before the law, right to equality before the law, right to remedy by competent tribunal, freedom from arbitrary arrest and exile, and the right to a fair public hearing. It's interesting to me that each of the 10 enumerated human rights carries some element or component of the law. The United Nations declared the theme for the 2023 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights to be dignity, freedom, and justice for all. Each year, the Paul Smith Library, in collaboration with the Rotary Club of Southern York County, sponsors a Human Rights Day event. In recognition of the 75th anniversary and the international theme that was selected, we here, the library, Michele, and the Rotary Club have selected our community's theme, Access to Justice in York County. And we are so fortunate in York County to be able to offer resources and services within our community to those who encounter the criminal justice system or have need of legal assistance or services. I'm pleased to introduce the panelists for tonight's event, and the panel discussion will be videotaped, and the presentation along with some related materials will be available to the public through the library's website. I'm going to introduce the panelists one at a time and allow them to speak, and then after the end of each panelist's presentation, we'll hopefully have a collaborative discussion and answer any questions that anybody might have. So first of all, we are so fortunate to have Victoria Connor at the helm of the York County Bar Association. As Chief Executive Officer since 2011, under her leadership, the Bar Association and its charitable arm, the York County Bar Foundation, has excelled in the development of programs to meet emerging community legal needs. Among the many hats she wears is the current president of the Pennsylvania Association of PA Bar Executives and president of the County Conference of Legal Journals. Just one of the many projects I'd like to highlight is that Ms. Connor is a founding member of the York County Pardon Project, launched in the fall of 2022. And also, special note in 2022, Ms. Connor was the honoree in the Martin Memorial Libraries program, which celebrates prominent library support and community supporters and community members. She also has a past president of the Uptown Rotary Club in her resume. And while I've only given you a short synopsis of her biography, I would like to highlight one other of her many distinguished awards, and that being the Arthur J. Bissall, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, Award for Outstanding Professional Service on behalf of the legal profession. Ms. Connor is a graduate of Rutgers University.
Well, thank you, Judge. I appreciate being here. I feel really blessed to do what I'm doing because it gets to combine my passions for helping people, but also working in the community and working with some great attorneys and judges and lay people as we deliver services to the people who need it most. Prior to joining the bar, I spent 11, almost 12 years with the American National Red Cross, doing a lot of disaster work. And one of the things that struck me when I came to the bar was when the Red Cross was called for help, everyone got service no matter who they were, or what their income was. And when I came to the bar, it was very different, where we were getting people who really needed assistance and they had nowhere to turn. We had systems that were broken at that time that we've really made some inroads in repairing. And then we started to, once we fixed some of those things, we started to then develop new programs to meet additional emerging needs. So it's not perfect. People still get turned away because their needs, what their issues are, don't extend to what our Mid-Penn Legal Services can do as far as free service. And that's where our attorneys step in to do pro bono work. So I'm going to give you a broad picture of some of the things that we're involved in addition being with relation to access to justice. So the York County Bar Association, it's the membership organization for York's attorneys and judges, and some lay people as well, our paralegals and other legal professionals that are supervised by attorneys. And its charitable arm, the York County Bar Foundation, we aspire to build our organization's capacity for leadership and service to improve the legal profession, the community that we're serving, and the administration of justice. It's a tall order. We have a small team in doing this work in our community. But our association's endeavors are fueled by our foundation's mission-focused funding. And we align our financial resources with our core values and our objectives. We are the largest, even though we're small, we are the largest private funder of and champion for law-related programs in York County. And I'll say that again, our York County Bar is the largest private funder and champion for law-related programs in York County. Access to justice is one of the key things that we are focused on. It's one of the fundamental tenets of our mission to ensure that justice is not a privilege, but a right that's accessible to everyone. And through our initiatives, we strive to bridge the gap and provide legal assistance to those who might otherwise face barriers to accessing the system. Our lawyer referral service, and I have some materials up here that will get you all the information, that's for everyone. Anyone of any type of means, you can call in, let us know what your issue is, and we can connect you with an attorney for the matter that you speak who's experienced. And for $50, you get a 30-minute consult with that individual. It's up to you to make the connection with them. And then from there, you decide whether or not you want to retain that attorney, if you have a case that's even worth retaining, because sometimes you'll pay more in legal fees than what your outcome is going to be. So you have to determine that with an attorney. And let me say that I am not an attorney, but I am very privileged to work with them all. They have a very difficult job to do in serving our community. So that is one thing. If your income is below our guidelines, you may qualify for a reduced rate type of assistance or free assistance. It depends on what your matter is and, again, what your income guidelines are. That's where pro bono comes in. That's free. And modest means where our attorneys in certain instances in criminal and family law specifically have agreed to do service for a reduced fee. And then if you're having an issue with an attorney, we are not a regulatory body, but you can call us and let us know if you're having a fee dispute. Suppose you give an attorney some money, you feel that they have been egregious and they've not represented you or done what they were supposed to do. You can, if you can't work it out directly with the attorney, which is what we always recommend, then you can file a dispute and we can work from there. Beyond that, I would say the most egregious thing that you could do would be to file a complaint with the disciplinary board. And that is available online through padisciplinaryboard.org. They are under the Supreme Court. They regulate the licenses of the attorneys. And always our first step, though, is work it out with the attorney if you're having an issue. Sometimes, in many cases, it's just a simple communication problem. In this day of 24/7 access to the internet, people have grand expectations. And attorneys are busy people and cannot always respond to you at 3 a.m. when you're having a crisis. And so this is where we tend to see a lot of conflict. But we always encourage you to work it out. The other thing that we've done is we were one of the founding funders of the York County Court Self-Help and Law Resource Center on the 4th floor of the Judicial Center downtown. You can go and you can get information. You can use the computers there. You can download packets, and you can pretty much find out information of any type of case matter that is relevant to you. However, when you do that, you will find that you should not go it alone. We encourage you strongly, always hire competent legal counsel. It is very difficult to represent yourself, especially when your opposing counsel, your opposing party may have an attorney. The outcomes are never very good. And so again, I encourage you to get an attorney if you are seeking legal advice. We also, through our foundation, provide legal education opportunities and scholarships. We were talking tonight before the program started that we invest in the education of aspiring attorneys. We have scholarships and educational programs to empower the next generation of legal minds, fostering a diverse and capable cadre of professionals committed to the principles of justice. We have a Knoll Scholarship, which affords books and other funds for attorneys who are in law school. And then we have the Clarence, Chuck, and Patterson Diversity Internship Scholarship, named after our only African-American judge who sadly passed away. And that scholarship offers paid internships to 2 individuals at the public defender's and at the district attorney's office. So those individuals have the opportunity to get real working experience. Often they become certified legal interns, but the whole goal of that is to get more diverse attorneys back here in York and practicing. Beyond the courtroom, we do a lot of community outreach and engagement like we're doing tonight. And we collaborate with local organizations and stakeholders to extend our reach beyond the local proceedings to address systemic issues by contributing to the overall well-being of our community. And what we have done as a funder is invest in programs that are diversionary, that will keep people who are getting in the justice system out by looking at the underlying causes of their criminal behavior and funneling them to the appropriate remedies, such as mental health treatment or treatment for substance abuse and that type of thing. Those issues, if we can put more money into diversion than incarceration, because as we know, no jail cell has ever cured someone of mental health illness or addiction, we can make our community safer, we can stabilize families, and we can save taxpayer dollars. So these are the type of strategic things that we like to address. We look at gun violence, and we invested in the group violence prevention initiative. And now we're looking at housing and codes enforcement related to the homeless and also the threat of eviction for people who are fearful of reporting their landlords who keep their properties in substandard conditions. We've partnered with an organization called Tenfold in York County to help provide attorney counsel for eviction prevention support. And we've worked with the York County Economic Alliance for workforce development through our pardon program. And our pardon program is where we can help people with criminal records get those records pardoned or expunged. And let me put the caveat there, these are low-level offenses. They are not sex crimes, nor are they murder or anything like that. But low-level offenses that maybe have followed someone around and prevented them from getting good credit, prevented them from getting good and safe housing, and prevented them from getting good employment. All of that affects our community tremendously because we have to support the social services programs that they then need. We have done some other programs as well, but the initiatives that we are involved in really provide, they address the unique needs of vulnerable people, and they ensure that they receive legal assistance and advocacy required for a fair and just resolution. So grant making that we do for Pennsylvania Immigration Resources has helped people who are immigrants maintain their protected status to stay here in York. These are legal immigrants who are in need of support, legal remedies, again, to maintain their homes, to keep their children in school, to maintain their employment. And also, of course, Mid-Penn Legal Services, the YWCA's Access for Victims of Domestic Violence, and our new American Welcome Center with the work that they do, and even the Rainbow Rose Center for support of the LGBTQ plus community. And then we are constantly looking at innovation. How can we be at the forefront of positive change? So through our innovative partnerships and projects, we contribute to the development of new and efficient ways to deliver legal services, making justice more accessible and responsive to the needs of society. Our technology committee meeting is going to be happening very soon, where the lawyers are going to be looking at what type of digital evidence can be admitted and what type of resources do the attorneys need in order to everyone to have a level playing field and be able to view the same type of documents when it comes to casework, so that the DAs aren't having an advantage over the PDs, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone has to have the same equipment in order to be able to deliver good cases. Collaboration and networking. Our foundation serves as a nexus for collaboration amongst legal professionals, community leaders, and other organizations. And by fostering this, we create a collective force that is more effective in addressing complex legal challenges and driving positive change. People that we work with include the York County Community Foundation and other funders, the Reentry Opportunity Center, the Coalition Against Homelessness, the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. It goes on and on and on. But without that collective power, we would be working in silos and we wouldn't be getting anywhere. And so this helps us with that. And again, beyond the courtroom, we're actively engaging our communities, whether it's through the pro bono work we do, the education initiatives, and our outreach programs. We're contributing to the betterment of York County and demonstrating that the legal profession is not just about resolving disputes, but also about making a positive impact in the community. And I mentioned our fee dispute. We have speakers bureaus like we do right now. We do it at the library through Penn State. Anyone who asks us to speak, Rotary clubs, we're happy to come out and talk about the things that you are interested in. I'm really proud of our pro bono programs. And let me just take just a minute to talk about something that our young lawyers have fostered. And that's our Wheels for Heroes events. Started after 9/11. The Wheels for Heroes events are really geared for our first responders, our emergency responders, our veterans, and their significant others. So if you are one of those categories, you can get on the list, have an appointment, and come and get a free will and a free financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney at no charge, because we believe that giving back to those who protect and serve us is really important. And again, that was all born out of the events of 9/11. We've been doing it for a long time, and we've served nearly 600 York County veterans and emergency first responders. We also do the pardon and the expungement and the driver's license restoration and divorce clinics. And each of those are very specific to a specific group of people who have a specific legal need. And our attorneys donate their time in the evenings typically so that we can be available when the people who need our help are available. We also do volunteer service for protection from abuse. So a day or two a month, our attorneys will block off their time and they will show up on that particular day to help people who file emergency protection from abuse orders. We also have fun things, the York Lawyers for the Artists. If you're an artist and you're looking to start out and you need to know something about intellectual property, we have plans and programs that we can help you. And then truancy prevention is another thing that we incubated, that we turned over to the United Way quite a while ago. And that was when the York County truancy rankings, which means kids weren't going to school, were 7th worst in the Commonwealth. After we developed this program to help keep kids in school and improve school attendance, our truancy ranking dropped to 39. Now we're undergoing change again as the United Way begins to change its parameters, and we'll be seeking to work with them to find a new place for our truancy prevention initiative to go. But why is that important to you? Because when we can improve school attendance, we can keep children out of trouble and out of jail later on. The statistics go like this. If you're not reading and writing by 3rd grade, by 6th to 7th grade, you're 70% more likely to drop out of school. 70% of America's prisons are filled with high school dropouts. So there's a direct correlation, and they call that the school to prison pipeline. We don't want to see that here in York County. We want to see people being productive, being good citizens, and being engaged. And then we have a program called Leave a Legacy, where we give education about how to support nonprofits in your community by leaving charitable gifts, by making gifts while you're living, and the like. And then estate planning too. This is what attorneys do. Everything that they do touches the fabric of your life in every single way. From the mask that you're wearing, from the makeup you wear, from the car that you drive, there's a regulation related to the legal community. And estate planning, this is a good one. Why it's important to have a will, how important it is, and why. Those are a few questions. And then for the community, we also get into politics. Imagine that. But we do a judicial candidate evaluation when our attorneys are running for judge. Who better to know them than their peers? Our judicial polls are really good. You should listen to them, because the only people who really know the practitioners are the other practitioners. And those are the ones who are doing the evaluations. And it goes the same for the judges. Who knows what makes a good judge? I'll challenge you, raise your hand in this room. What do you think makes a good judge? You wouldn't know that, but the practitioners who appear before those judges do. And when they complete the evaluations, they're being honest and they're telling you. But I can tell you that the top 3 things that make a great judge is knowledge, temperament, and civility. If they are knowledgeable about the practice of law, if they have a good temperament, and if they are civil to the attorneys and to the litigants that appear before them, then they're going to be a good judge. And so we try and help do public education about that. We talked a little bit about our Law Explorers course with York County Alliance for Learning. And that is where 2 high school students from each school district participate in a 10-month program with attorneys at Stock and Leader. And each month they cover a different area of law. It culminates in a tour of the Judicial Center and a mock trial. Many of those students have gone on to be attorneys after a while. So they get the spark of wanting to have a legal career, and that's what they do. We also have a mock trial competition, and that is the same thing. It gets students excited about having a career in the legal profession. And then annually we celebrate Law Day, which is a national celebration that was started by Dwight Eisenhower. And we do that every year on May 1, and we have different themes. And last year's theme was the cornerstones of democracy, civics, civility, and collaboration. And we take that to heart. And as part of that, in addition to recognizing our mock trial students, we also have essays about the tenets or whatever the theme is, and we do a contest. Previously, it was a bookmark. This past year, we did a billboard contest, and the winning student gets their designs published. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you tonight about what we do. And then I have some handouts for you. This is a guide to where to get help in York County, and it will show you if your matter is civil or legal, what phone numbers to call, what agencies to go to, but you can always just call the York Bar or go to our website, yorkbar.com, and find all the information that I have to share with you. I have information about the Pardon Project if you're an individual that is looking to find out whether your matter qualifies for that. You can check this flowchart out. Information about our lawyer referral service, our modest means, and the Pardon Project, and then information about from our foundation about all of the projects that we funded last year, and I hope that you'll find it valuable. So thank you for having me, Judge, and I look forward to hearing to our other.
So next I'd like to introduce Attorney Stephanie Lombardo. She is the Chief Deputy Prosecutor for Diversion and Appeal with the York County District Attorney's Office. Following graduation from Syracuse University College of Law in 2008, she's a youngster. She worked as a defense attorney before joining the York County DA's office in 2012. She spent 7 years in the appellate unit before becoming the GBI prosecutor. She'll explain that, and then was promoted to her current position in March of 2021. Please welcome Attorney Lombardo.
Thank you so much for having me, and my fellow panelists, welcome. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of the York County District Attorney's Office. And while my office is involved in many initiatives that focus on access to justice, today I'll be focusing on access for justice for victims of crime. In Pennsylvania, we have what's called a Victims' Bill of Rights, which delineates the expectations and rights that victims have in the criminal justice process. Broadly speaking, you can sort of conceptualize them as being about knowledge, support, and input. All victims have the right to knowledge about what's going on in their criminal case. And knowledge can be about what are the basic services that are available in a county, counseling, medical assistance, things of that nature. It's also knowledge about what's happening. When is the next court date? What does this court date do? Do I have to be there? How do I get there? Do I have to pay for my own parking? All those questions that come to mind when you're involved in a criminal case as a victim. It also goes towards support. Every victim has the right to be accompanied to the proceeding, have a victim witness advocate with them at that time. Or if they wish to draft a letter to the court for sentencing, or to prepare an oral statement to give to the court at that time, they have the right to have that support in drafting such a document. And finally, a right to input, such as if there is a request for bail modification, to give the court their opinion on that, and also to give input on any kind of sentencing recommendation and have that interaction with the prosecutor. I say all of this broadly because when we talk about access of justice for victims, we're really talking about access to justice for public safety. And by being victim-centric, by being victim-focused, we are increasing public safety. I hope no one in this room or watching on the greater social media has ever been a victim of crime. I truly hope that. But as I've often said, when I meet someone for court, I'm meeting them following one of the worst days of their life. And I want to know what makes them feel safer. Because many times your victim knows their defendant, or the person who has caused a harm to them. And they're in the best position to know what will make them safer. Is this a person who needs mental health counseling? Is this a person who needs drug and alcohol counseling? Is this an issue of poverty? Is this an issue of someone being overwhelmed in life through PTSD from military service? And a lot of times, my victim of crime is going to know that. And that's something they want to tell me. And I need to be focused on that as a prosecutor. What makes my victim feel safe? What are the services they need to be made whole? And in doing that, in addressing those requests, that information, I can make my community safer. It's easy to lock someone up in jail and throw away the key and never look back. But the reality is that most people who are incarcerated will be coming back into their communities. And those communities often have those victims of crime. So what I do as a prosecutor, what my office does as a policy, in being victim-focused, in being victim-centric, in making sure my victims have access to the services to which they're entitled, to the knowledge of what's going on in their case, and to the support to get through those criminal processes, I make sure that when these folks come back from prison, when they're done with probation, they're in the best possible situation to not reoffend, to not be back in the system, and so that my victims and defendants can lead the best lives possible. And with that, I'll save the rest of my comments for our greater panel discussion.
Thank you, Attorney Lombardo. Also fulfilling a vital role in the office of the York County District Attorney's Office is Miles Watson, a criminal justice and history major, graduate of York College of Pennsylvania. Mr. Watson then attended graduate school for an MFA in writing. He spent 12 years in the entertainment industry. I did not know that about him. I see him in my courtroom, but I didn't know that about him. And he is also a published author and won the Reader's Favorite Gold Medal for his World War II novel entitled Sinner's Cross, which he promised I'm going to be able to read. Mr. Watson has spent 10 years in the field of criminal justice, the last 4 in victim advocacy. Mr. Watson.
Thank you. So I'm just going to pick up where stuff left off. Excuse me, I've just got these glasses, so this is like really new to me. You're all a giant blur. So my name again is Miles Watson, and I'm with the victim witness. I'm just going to take these off. I'm with the victim witness unit of the district attorney's office, and a lot of people don't know that we exist. So part of my job is brand ambassador when I go out to, for example, Judge Sweeney's courtroom, which is right down the street. The reason why I didn't get lost tonight, because I come here fairly regularly. I'll be here tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So one of the things I do is I go out and I tell people that we exist. The victim witness unit of the York County District Attorney's Office consists of about, at the present time, it's about 11 coordinators, and we have a unit secretary and a boss. And what we do is, the coordinator's job is essentially to translate for victims of crime legal terminology and take the edges off the system. In other words, the system can be somewhat impersonal, as we all know. It's a system. All systems can be kind of impersonal or bureaucratic. What we try to do is we put a human face on it. A person, she referenced earlier the idea of people who speak for those who can't speak for themselves. The motto of a lot of, of forensic investigators and stuff is we speak for the dead. Well, people we speak for are generally alive, and they can speak for themselves, but they don't know that they can speak for themselves. because they don't understand the legal system. There's no reason for 98% of the people who encounter us to have any knowledge of the legal system at all. They come from all different backgrounds and walks of life, but they probably have had limited to no experience with the justice system. Maybe a speeding ticket, something like that. A cousin who was landed in jail and they had to put up bail for something along those lines. Landlord-tenant dispute, a civil lawsuit, something like that. Most people have had no experience going through the criminal justice system. So what we help do is navigate them through it. I go out to, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain, sort of do something a little differently. If I were to go to Judge Sweeney's courtroom, which I will do tomorrow, I would introduce myself to the victim. I would identify myself. I would say, I'm Miles Watson, I'm with the DA's office, I'm with the victim witness unit. I would introduce the prosecutor and reintroduce them to the police officer. And then I would explain what happens at a preliminary hearing, why they're there, what their rights are, what they can expect, what they can't expect. I talk to them about the crime. I try to get a preliminary feeling for them about the case, about what they want out of the case. What are they looking for? I try to give them some empowerment the first time that I meet them, and also explain the system to them. Because again, there's no reason for them to know anything about the system or to know what their rights are as victims under Pennsylvania law. So what I try to do is I try to soften that first impact that people have when they come in and they're head on with the system. They're now at the preliminary hearing, and I explain how the process could go. So expectation management is kind of one of the things that we do, because we don't want to false promise anything about the system, about what's going to happen to the defendant. And as I'm sure you're all aware, there are certain crimes, especially crimes that occur within a family, where people's blood might have been really hot the night of the incident and now it's cooled off and they don't want to proceed. And we have our own methods and mechanisms for dealing with that, because we want to listen to people, but we also have to take into account their safety. And I'm sure you all know that in some abusive relationships, people will go back many times to the abusive relationship, and that's something that we try to educate people about in a gentle way. We're not there to browbeat them or beat them over the head, but we basically try to assess the situation and get them through that first hearing so that they feel listened to, and that they feel that there is a person that they can reach out to who speaks the same language they do. Because our attorneys are very good, but attorneys are good at being attorneys. They are dealing with very complex legal terms. The judge is a neutral body. The police officer is there being in his capacity as a police officer. We're there to say, this is what that meant. Do you understand what he meant when he said this? Okay, you don't, I'm going to explain it to you. So when they leave, hopefully they know that they have, if I've done my job correctly, they know that they have an advocate going forward who is going to help them navigate this system, because afterwards, there's a whole slew of things that are going to happen. There's going to be an arraignment and a pretrial conference and another pretrial conference, and there's probably going to be a status hearing. There may or may not be a trial. So as I go along with them, or as a coordinator goes along with them through this process, there are times they're going to be angry. They're going to be confused, frustrated at how slow it's going. Maybe they're frustrated because the bail conditions aren't severe enough, or what have you. People might be angry, they might be confused, or they might be just impatient. They might be out a lot of money and hoping to get their money back. Their car might be totaled and now they don't have a car. So that leads to another aspect of what I do, which is we try to match people with the resources that we know are there that they don't know they're there. Because why would they? Again, most people are not used to navigating the system. So we try to hook people up with everything from counseling if they need it, to financial resources if they need it. We have 2 victim witness coordinators who deal exclusively with domestic violence situations. They're both excellent. And what they do is they match the person to the resources as they believe that they need them. And they're also very good at dealing with the unique psychology that comes with people who've experienced domestic abuse over a long period of time. We also have a coordinator who deals with child cases. We have some specialized coordinators. I do a generalized caseload, so I handle all manner of crimes. So I have to be ready to answer people's questions about the resources. Crime scene cleanup. I dealt with a homicide case once where, I won't go into details, but there was a lot of cleanup to be done, and this poor woman, she couldn't afford it. Crime scene cleanup is expensive. But there is a program in Pennsylvania called VCAP, which is excellent, Victims Compensation Assistance Program, that can compensate people for medical bills up to $35,000. It can do crime scene cleanup. It can do funeral expenses. It can do lost wages for work when you went to court, and so on. So people don't know that exists. So it's our job to make sure that people understand that there are resources out there and that there are people who are actually listening to them And even when we can't really do anything for them, it's enormously psychologically valuable to tell somebody that there's a human being who actually cares what is happening to you. What we don't want is for people to feel like they just dealt with the most impersonal refrigerator-like system that's ice cold and doesn't care and is all sharp edges. We want somebody that they're going to be on a first name basis with, that they can call, that they can text, that they can email, that they can reach out to and ask for help and resources. And again, we can't always really deliver anything concrete or material, but I had a case, and I'll wind up with this. I had a case where it was a homicide by vehicle, where the person who committed the homicide was not drunk, they were not drugged, they just ran a light. They made a mistake. They killed somebody. So we prosecuted them. But we prosecuted them for the crime they actually committed. So the person wasn't looking at years and years in prison. It was a moment of negligence. It was not an intentional criminal act or a reckless criminal act. Very large family. The person who died was the patriarch of the family, and he was very beloved by his family. And so I realized very quickly there really wasn't anything I could do for these people other than talk to them. So I talked to them whenever they called, whenever they wanted to talk to me. Sometimes they had nothing really to say, they just wanted to talk. And we got through the entire process, which took, I'm sure the justice system's kind of slow. And especially the more serious the crime, the slower it goes. So we got through to the end. And I honestly do believe that I helped them get to, I don't use the word closure, but they got to the other side of this process, and they felt like there was somebody that they could reach out to and talk to. And sometimes that's all we can do. And sometimes there's a great deal more we can do. But I think what a person remembers is not necessarily getting a particular benefit of a system, but just knowing that there are people out there who are actually consciously trying to help them, that are worried about their worries, that care about their cares, and actually try to do something about it. And even if we're not successful, the fact that we were there and kind of took some of those sharp edges off, I think is what a lot of people remember about dealing with us. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that we can do in victim witness, is get the message out there that we exist, that we actually care, that we can hook you up with resources, and if nothing else, we can kind of do some hand-holding to get you to that point when this is all over and you can go on with your life. And I always say to people at the end, I say, it was great to get to know you, sorry about the circumstances. I hope I never see you again, because we obviously don't hope we ever see anyone again. And that's our job, is to get them through and out the door, and hopefully they can move on with their lives and give them a voice, or if they can't speak, we speak for them. So that's essentially what I do, and with that, I will thank you and move on. Thank you.
Great, so we heard a bit from the Public Defender's Office from two perspectives, from the District Attorney's Office from two perspectives, and now we will hear from the Public Defender's Office. And first we have Attorney Catherine Law, I think she goes by Katie, and she serves the needs of the public who qualify for legal representation for criminal offenses through the York County Office of the Public Defender due to that individual's financial circumstances. She's a chief deputy public defender with the York County Public Defender's Office, went to law school at Wake Forest University School of Law, and then came to Central Pennsylvania to work at a corporate law firm in Harrisburg. After a few years in private practice, she followed her passion of helping the most disadvantaged individuals in society and became a public defender at the Cumberland County Public Defender's Office. And after 3 years of service there, she came to York County as a senior public defender and then was promoted to the chief public defender, where she serves as the chief of trials. She specializes in assisting clients with severe mental illness and those charged with serious felonies.
So one of the best things I think about being a public defender is we are the only job that is constitutionally required in the United States. Under the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to an attorney if you are facing jail time in the United States. And no other occupation in the US is required under our Constitution except for public defenders. So we have the privilege of representing people just as Attorney Lombardo said, at usually the worst day of their life. Usually what has led up to them needing our services is something absolutely terrible has happened. I would say about 80% of our clients have severe mental health needs, and that comes in any form of childhood trauma that has led to current mental illness or substance use disorder that they have been struggling with for decades. So while our job is to represent them legally and be a voice for them in the courtroom, in the legal proceedings, a lot of our job actually is more counseling. We have to sit and listen to our clients' stories, their life experiences, what has led them up to be in front of us. And we also have to provide them or try to point them in the right direction to provide them with resources that can help them either get out of this system or get out of prison and have resources that they need in the community. One of the hardest things that we have to overcome is a lot of our clients don't have stable housing. And so when we ask for people to be released from prison, they have absolutely nowhere to go. And without anywhere safe to go, they will just end up having to reoffend and then needing our services again. To qualify for our services, we go based on the poverty guidelines. So you would come into our office and we do an intake interview where we talk about your income, how many children you have, your living situation. And if you are facing jail time and you qualify under our income guidelines, we represent you. There is no question about it. We don't take people based on what they say in their interview or what their charges are. We take absolutely everyone who qualifies. Also, with what Attorney Lombardo said, we often talk as public defenders and district attorneys about the same people. We see people on both sides of the system because the most disadvantaged people in our communities are the most likely to be victims of crimes. So my clients today are my clients, and tomorrow might be in a victim witness coordinator's office because they don't have the resources, unfortunately, to protect themselves in society. They're the most likely to be taken advantage of. So within our office, we have attorneys who represent you from the very beginning of the criminal proceeding, from when you're charged, all the way up through appeals. If you appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, we will be helping you from point A to point Z. We also in our office have an investigator to help us investigate possible offenses, and then also a social worker who will be talking to you shortly about how we try to provide social services to our clients who need them most. One of the things we try to do in York County is diversionary type programming where we try to give services, mental health, drug and alcohol, education, or services that will help restore people who have been victims of crimes before the end of a case in a way to try and resolve the case in a way that's beneficial for everyone, or the most beneficial for everyone. I often say I have a hard time calling it a justice system because regardless of what side you're on, it doesn't usually feel like justice, unfortunately, be it you're a victim of a crime. A lot of times you're never gonna feel like you got justice through the system, or if you're a defendant who's been charged with a crime, you're likely never gonna feel like you had justice on your side either. But we both do our best on both sides of the aisle to try and make sure that the people that come before us are shown compassion and care throughout the entire process. A lot of times all we can do is be a kind face and listen to people's stories and be the best advocate we possibly can for them. I know this has been said many times, but the legal system can be confusing, and also I never recommend anyone go through it without an attorney, especially as a defense attorney. Never go through it without an attorney. But our clients generally don't have the education or the mental capacity to advocate successfully for themselves in any capacity. So they really need someone there who will 100% be on their side and fight for their side of the case. And I'm gonna leave it at that so that Sarah can explain more of our actual social services that we do.
I'm going to interject here that I first met Sarah somewhat recently about a case pending here in Southern New York County, and it is one of the prime situations where someone has mental health issues, has some substance abuse issues, has a homeless situation, and probably a myriad of other things that I'm not aware of as the judge on the case. The case is still pending, but thank goodness we have Sarah, who was able to step in and assist the public defender's office with addressing all of the situations that this particular defendant, who is accused of several crimes, without someone like Sarah, which I think is relatively new in the York County Public Defender's Office, this person would pretty much be on their own, other than their attorney, who would be handling just the legal part of the case. So Sarah works for the York County Office of the Public Defender as a social service advocate. She also volunteers on the Youth Diversionary Board. She has worked in the criminal justice system since 2013. For the first 7 years of her career, she was employed by the district attorney's office as a victim witness coordinator and a case manager, which means she's seen both sides of the system working for folks. She has a bachelor's degree from York College of Pennsylvania with minors in psychology and applied youth development. She has received special training involving trauma, mental health, crisis intervention, human trafficking, domestic violence, and child victimization.
So everyone has touched on a lot of very similar things that I would say. I am a social service advocate, which is a brand new position for our office, and it just started in March, so it's only me. Social work and advocates are becoming really popular in public defender's office all across the United States. I'm getting a lot of guidance from a group of individuals, social workers in mitigation, because a lot of us are brand new and trying to figure this out as we go. How it's currently working in our office is the attorneys recognize that their client has a need. A lot of times it's homelessness, food insecurity, just very basic needs are not being met. And when those needs are not being met, it's really hard to represent them legally. The clients are required to do certain things, like drug and alcohol evaluations, where they have to call and schedule that on their own. They have to make it to the appointment. They might have to sign like different types of releases of information, so that evaluation can be shared with the different offices. And when they don't know where their next meal is coming from, that drug and alcohol evaluation is not even on their list of things to do. But unfortunately, things like that have to get done. And so that's where I can step in and kind of walk them through the process. I think it has become very apparent that there is still a lot of need in our community. While there are a ton of people that are willing to help and a lot of organizations that are willing to help, some things that need done just don't exist. So part of my job is also like problem solving and getting creative, so our clients their needs can be met. Another thing that I'm doing is like collaborating with a lot of different organizations to streamline things, to get clients in the direction that they need to go quickly. So there's a lot of places locally that I stay in connection with, friends and neighbors. They do street outreach and focus on our homeless population. GBI, which I think was mentioned. I stay in contact with them. I spend time at our local shelters, and there's like it's called a coffee spot. It has a different name now, but it's like a day shelter. I go there as well because a lot of our clientele frequent those places, and they don't know that our services exist or how to get connected. So I go there with resources so they can find me where they're at, and I can connect them to our attorneys so that they can get legal representation. This position is very new, so I encourage you guys to ask questions.
So I think the best thing to do at this point is first to ask if anyone in our audience has any specific questions that they have for the panel to discuss. Yes, sir.
So Sarah, you work with other organizations, right?
Yes.
Now, being a Rotarian and a Lion, our job is to grab funds and help these charitable organizations do their work, right? From your viewpoint, is there a type of organization that should exist, that does not exist, that would facilitate the broader solution?
I can think of one.
Transportation is a huge thing for me. So there are a lot of local churches that will help with bus passes, Lyft, Ubers, things like that to get to employment, new employment. There's an organization that will help people get to treatment for like intensive outpatient treatment. But there's no one that will help our clients get to court. And there are major consequences if you do not go to court. You can end up incarcerated. We have clients in Dauphin County, which is a huge hurdle because they can take the bus, but the express doesn't come at good times to the York Transfer Center. I have probably called and begged like 20 different places to get help for our clients. There's a shelter in Harrisburg that houses people that are in wheelchairs, and we don't have that in York. So that shelter will take some of our clients that our local ones cannot, or if they burn bridges here, that's the next closest thing unless they want to sleep outside. So somehow we need to get resources to get our clients to and from court.
And especially with York being so barren on public transportation, we have a lot. I mean, York is a big county, right? We have a lot of area, and we have clients who live nowhere near really anything resembling transportation. So they will have to walk a mile before they can even go get food. So I have clients who he walks 1 mile to go, and the closest thing he has is Dollar General. So he'll walk and get the bare necessities from Dollar General and then walk a mile home. But he doesn't have a car. He doesn't have, there's nowhere to work around where he lives, and he has no license. So the only way for him to get where he's going is to call around and beg people to bring him. And like Sarah said, if he misses court just once, he goes to jail. So, and then on top of that, you know, we want people to be productive and be working and be able to support themselves. And they just don't have the means to do that without the transportation necessary.
Thank you.
And I'll just echo on that, you know, the district courts, there are 19 of the district courts that are spread throughout York County. I'm one in Southern York County, Judge Manifold's another, Judge Riley a little bit further west. The jurisdictional district court is where the offense allegedly occurred. So I may have an individual who resides somewhere in northern York County or York City, but has to get to court, at least initially, in Southern York County. And as sparse as the resources are in the York City, general greater York City area, we have nothing. in this area, nor Dillsburg, nor, Delta, or Cador's Township. So that is a huge challenge, transportation for folks.
And like she said, our client who lives in Dauphin County, we looked up how to get him here on a bus. He'd have to do 2 transfers and it would take 4 hours from just Dauphin County. And so by the time he got here, he would have missed his court date in the morning, and the next possible bus to go home was the next day. So he would have had to sleep on the street for the night because he lived in a homeless shelter in Harrisburg. So it's just not practical for them to get here.
Yeah.
And I just want to add too that we have a specific individual that is so paranoid about missing court. He calls me on a weekly basis asking me if I have found a solution. And today I was still sending out emails asking anyone to help him, and so far nothing. And also, aside from transportation, because this is a big one for me, we don't have any. I think we have one room in York County that will house a person that's homeless that's in a wheelchair. We have so many people in York County in wheelchairs and no place to go. I have pushed an individual in a wheelchair to the corner out in front of the courthouse and walked away because that's all that was out there. There was nothing else for him. He had to sleep outside in his wheelchair, which eventually became broken from the weight of his upper body leaning back when he slept. So he eventually had no back support and just living outside.
Who makes the decision as to whether or not someone basically qualifies for it to be court online, so to say? Who, I mean, if
The judge.
The judge. So basically, she's the advocate for the defendant. Defendant can't get somewhere, but the defendant may have access. I mean, could you request basically for that to take place?
They do, they do, it's the judge's discretion, and my role is good cause, and counsel gives me their good cause reason, and I always check with the other side. Defense counsel has requested so-and-so appear by Zoom, or Commonwealth's counsel has requested that, or in the case of a civil case, plaintiff and defendant, what's your position? And then I make a decision.
I'm just wondering, because if someone legitimately lives basically off the beaten trail there, and they don't have access, and there are means now. And again, when we were in the constant world of COVID, we made it work. Why wouldn't we make it work to consistently here?
Good question. Well, and there is another piece in criminal cases, and that is a defendant has the right to face their accuser. So that's why it's important that the decision be made by the judge with input from both sides as well. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I would just say that I think I agree with you, and because I started my job at the height of COVID, so we did a lot of things virtually because we had to, and like you said, we made it work. And there are, as the judge said, there are some issues constitutionally with the right of facing an accuser and so forth. I think systems, especially any system, is reluctant to embrace change, just as a rule. And I think that's part of the issue, is that technology will change things, I think, more eventually, but it's one of those step forward, step back, step sideways, step forward, and there are legitimate issues with it as well, but I agree with you that the trend, I think, is towards something more like that. But I also think that in our country, the states, we all have different ways of dealing with things. And then eventually there's a national pattern that emerges. But that's a huge process that's not even conscious. It's half unconsciously driven. So it would be interesting to see, because just for convenience sake and for the sake of people, like you said, who can't get to where they need to go, there is a limit to what we can do under the present system. It's pretty frustrating sometimes.
Robin, I think you have a question.
I think this probably be for more Victoria, but anybody can answer. So I know of a person who had a civil offense, and this person contacted the York County Bar, and they paid their $50, and they were given, there was an attorney that contacted that person, and it was like an hour, I think 30 hour time for a consultation. And then the person went and spoke with this attorney, and after the time was up, the attorney says, well, I'm not the right one for your situation. But that attorney knew of the whole civil case or condition. But why would that attorney accept it and then have that person say, then tell that person that I'm not the right person for you? Maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and start again and get somebody who understands your civil case.
Well, it could be maybe they had a conflict with someone involved in that case, or the depth of their knowledge may not have extended to what the needs of the client were. But in a case like that, we would have accepted them back and not charged them for another referral.
Okay.
We would have taken it back and said, let us get you somebody who is the right person. We have had instances, the law is so complex, and we are a unique county in that our office, I feel very strongly that we have to have a person answering the phone. So when you call our office, you're getting a live person, and they talk with you at length to find out what your matter is and connect you as best they can based on what the client is saying. Sometimes, as we talked about many times, when people are calling in, they don't have legal issues, they have social service issues, and we partner with every agency in town to connect them to the best resources that they need. Luckily for us, the United Way is seriously looking at transportation as one of its new priorities. So that will be helping everyone in the community, because there is no overarching organization that looks at that. Although we do have great transportation providers, it's not enough, as we talked about. So to go back to your question, yes, if anyone were to call and get a consult and you were inadvertently placed with an attorney that was not an experienced one in the case type that you had, we would take them back and say, our bad, let us put you with someone who really does have the right experience. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about elder care attorneys, pro bono elder care attorneys? I work with a lot of elderly people who are needing help, can't afford it, and they are like trying to find their way to the end of their life decisions, but there's not much.
So we can talk offline about specific individuals and specific supports that we can do, but the offices, there are nurse navigators and navigators at both hospitals as well that have resources to work with the elderly, as well as the Area Agency on Aging, as well as the community foundations Embracing Aging. So there's a lot of different resources that we can perhaps connect you to if you're not already aware of those. But there are elder law attorneys who do a fine job. It just depends on what it is that you actually need, what the client needs.
Okay, and my last question was for Miles. You mentioned that there were different, you're a victims advocacy person, and you mentioned that there were, there's information a lot of people don't know about, but you can help lead them and navigate them to it. Why is it that they would not know about it? It's not advertised, or?
I think it's because the ordinary person, I don't want to go too deep because some of this is just my theories. I know I have a lot of theories that probably people think are nonsense. But I believe that the ordinary person doesn't go through life thinking, I might need a resource, if I'm a victim of crime. So it's a situational situation where a loved one is murdered. Now they need a crime scene cleanup at their place of residence or in a house they're renting out that they own that they're maybe too elderly to actually go out and do themselves. I had a situation like that. No one thinks of something like that, So the Victims Compensation Assistance Program is an excellent program that we use all the time, that I always recommend to anyone that I think is qualified for it or even borderline, because you're not worse off if they happen to say no. They just said no, you're no worse off than before. But the title itself, Victims Compensation Assistance Program, we don't think of ourselves as victims, nor should we, I think, on a day-to-day basis, So people don't prepare for that kind of thing. So I think it's a reaction to, oh my God, I'm in this situation.
No, what do I do?
Now what can I do? Yeah, I think there's a certain psychology in that as well, because I think that people, and I would classify myself as this, especially when I was younger. You don't want to think about certain things. Therefore, if you don't think about them, they don't exist. It's the monster under the blanket thing of like, if I'm under this blanket, the monster can't get me. I do think there's an element of psychology to that somewhat. I think that some agencies don't do the greatest job of advertising for themselves, but a lot of people just, it's not in your wheelhouse until it is.
Yeah.
Hopefully it never is, but until it is, you don't think about it. That would be my answer for that.
I have a question, excuse me, that I do want to get asked here because I think this is important. And I can't remember, Victoria, if you touched on it or not, but if you didn't, or if you even did touch it a little, would you expand on it? And that is the York Vet Network programs.
Oh, the York Vet Network is a fantastic program. It's run by Bill Fallon, who is working at the Veterans Administration. And it is a consortium of organizations that meet frequently, at least monthly, and then they also get together for breakfast at least a few times a year. And they're all organizations that are doing things to prioritize care for our veterans. We have a wellness court in York County. We're very big on the diversionary courts. The York County wellness courts are models for the state and the nation. Our wellness court for the veterans was started by Judge Colonel Trebilcock. Veterans rehabilitation has a much lower recidivism rate, 10 to 15% recidivism rate for veterans than the other groups combined. And one of you touched on the PTSD from your mental health from serving in combat, different things that trigger veterans that are much different than the other populations. And so it's a very wonderful organization. But the York Vet Network is specifically, I could say almost daily, an email will come through that will say, we need a bed, a specific type of bed, a specific wheelchair, and the 100 people that are on this network respond, and they'll contact the Lions Club or they'll contact a Rotary Club, and they'll make the veterans treatment a priority. So it's a wonderful thing to see. And of course, York County, Pennsylvania, we have a tremendous amount of veterans, tremendous amount of reservists that give their service, and we need to be supporting them as best we can because they're in our community. As someone mentioned, those who are incarcerated, it behooves all of us to see that they get treated and they're provided with the supports they need because they're coming back into our community. And it's a balance of accountability and redemption. Accountability and redemption. So we do believe that most people can be rehabilitated. Of course, there are some that will never, see the light of day because they don't deserve to, but others, certainly with the right supports and right treatments and right connections, can certainly go on to be productive citizens, making our community that much safer.
I work with Bill Fallon, one of my clients, and his group was very effective with helping them with their needs.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. It's not perfect. We tried. We definitely tried.
I think we're about ready to wrap up. Sir, did you have a question?
I did have a question.
Sure.
Since we're talking about human rights, America incarcerates a lot of people. I think we're one of the largest incarcerators in the world. I'm glad you guys are bringing up mental health. What approaches have you been doing to change the system of addressing the mental health instead of the lock them up in a box method that we've been used to?
So I am very happy to answer this question. So York County has what's called the Stepping Up Initiative. It is a group of myself, PDs, mental health professionals, drug and alcohol professionals, and we meet to discuss those who are incarcerated who have mental health disorders. And we work on, as I like to say it, getting them where they need to be, doing the evaluations. Do they need to be an inpatient? Do they for drug and alcohol, or do they need to be set up with counseling services, with a psychiatrist for medication needs? Do they need help getting birth certificates, social security cards, things of that nature, so they can have a home plan, so they can be bailed into the community? So we recognize that not everyone who's incarcerated pre-trial needs to be there, but to make sure that they are, in the community, we have to make sure that they're safely in the community. Setting someone up to fail does not help anybody. So if we can help someone get connected with a counselor on the outside, or set them up with CARD or STAR, some of our community partners, so they can have med management, so they can find a psychiatrist on the outside, And that's what we want to do to help them transition back into the community. So I know Sarah and I have worked together on many cases. Attorney Law and I have worked together on many cases where we're trying to set up those services so a bail modification can be done. So we can say to the victim, hey, we got them all set up with the services you want to see them see. Can we modify the bail to unsecured so they're not sitting in prison getting no treatment, but moving them into a healthier situation outside of prison?
And you mentioned CARD. So CARD is Community Action for Recovery and Diversion, and that is that program where at the time of the violation, the offender is being connected. They're having an evaluation. They're being evaluated about what is the cause of their underlying behavior. Are they substance abuse? Is it a mental health issue? And then they're pretty much immediately then being connected to the services they need. The specialized treatment team is now co-located with that, and we were instrumental in starting that whole process. By we, I mean the Bar Foundation, in which we did a feasibility study. Then we invested in some of the initial funding for the staff, which leveraged other funders, and now it's a whole thing that is continuing to grow. I personally also am on the mental health center board for the York Hospital for WellSpan, and they are looking at one of the other issues we have is there is a dearth of providers to begin with. There's a dearth of psychiatrists and psychologists, and so they're working to expand their programs, to expand their ability to serve people and prevent them from using the emergency room as a place to go, but really find some adequate resources for them. So there's a lot of things happening in the community that the general public doesn't know about because it's just kind of happening behind the scenes as we go. But you are right. We closed down the mental hospitals that were housing people. We've seen that. People were bused to other locations, let out the doors, and there they went. And so now we as a community are paying the price for that, and we're trying to catch up and figure out what it is that we can do to help these people who so desperately need it.
And I would just like to, I'm sorry.
Not to put a damper on this, because it's all, like, everyone, especially up here, has phenomenal intentions to try and help these people, but it is a true epidemic, the number of mental health individuals we have in this state that are incarcerated. And one of the main reasons is because we have nowhere to put them. So like was mentioned, there aren't hospitals for them. We have 2 main mental health institutions that are secure facilities in the state, and they have a very limited number of beds. So if I have a client who has severe mental health needs to the point where they don't even understand the legal system and they're sitting in jail, they will likely be there for a year before they can get into a mental institution to be rehabilitated. And then if they aren't rehabilitated from there, they then have to wait another however long to get a bed at a step-down facility, which there are also only 2 of in the entire state. And then if we want to get someone out into our community in York, it's non-existent. I mean, the mental health housing that we have available in our actual county, it doesn't really exist. So I have clients who sit for years in prison because they have nowhere to go. Not to put a huge damper on everything,
No, I mean,
because everyone has
Yeah.
really good intentions,
And
but
I
we
would-
need more resources.
I would just say 2 quick things because I know we want to wrap up, but I would say that I do think the system, like the criminal justice system and the courts and so forth, police, this is a much deeper societal problem. We need those hospitals back. And that's not something the district attorney's office has, you know what I mean? That we can't do that. That was a decision that our society made that was dumb a long time ago that we're all paying for. And that's number one. Number 2, as somebody who goes to hundreds of preliminary hearings, and I mean hundreds every year, I can honestly say that I have seen many, many times our prelim attorneys and conflict counsel, public defender's office, or private counsel putting their heads together in front of me saying, this guy needs help, he doesn't need to be in jail. I mean, he might be dangerous, so we have to address that issue. We would be negligent if we did not do that. Our job is to protect the public. That's our first job. But we're also human beings. And when I know putting a person in prison who's mentally ill is not going to make them better, it's going to make them worse. The problem's temporarily solved because they're off the streets and we don't have to see it. But when the person gets out, they're probably worse. So we know that, and we do what we can to funnel those people. I've never met a prosecutor who's like, I don't give a damn if this person's mentally ill, they're going to prison. I've never heard that. And as an advocate, I sometimes fight with the attorneys. That's my job, is sometimes to present a different point of view to them. But I've never heard anybody say that since I've been working, ever. They are interested. It's just that the resources, a lot of times, especially post-COVID, because everybody's mental health got worse. You wanted counseling during COVID, you had to accept group counseling online, and that was it. So, I mean, it is a much deeper problem, and I think it's a problem that we need to address as a society. And I know how lame that sounds, because it's like putting it on everybody, but it really is a problem that we need to address as a society.
Fixing that would fix the majority of all of our problems up here, I think.
Well, I think it would be if every child could have a safe and loving home.
Yeah.
I think if we could start there, then we wouldn't have some of the later issues that we'll see. Truly, every child deserves a safe and loving
We
home.
have a gentleman with a question.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question, it's kind of an observation. My life is bifold. A number of years in MSW, child welfare, community mental health, drug and alcohol. And I remember when I worked in mental health and that whole process started to launch, one of the concerns that people held was exactly what you're describing now. The resources would vanish, and they're gone. I mean, it's just, I remember our doctor, bring them in, give them the medication and get them out. That's a part of it. There's another part in the culture that's so violently aggressive and so individualistically associated and so highly competitive that there are true people in the world. There are sociopaths, narcissistics, sadists. They're sick, bad people, and they're not going to change. But there are a lot of people who, with your observations, had they grown up in places where there was peace, where there was nurture, where there was love. So there's no way we're ever going to escape crime, but we could do a better job. And what I'd say to all of you who are presented today, and I do some work with a person who's in prison for having committed a murder in this county a number of years ago. I came to meet this person in my first call in this county a number of years ago. It's horrific to be on both sides. What she did was terrible for the family that she brought that harm to. And yet here's a human being who in many respects suggests to me that there's been redemption for her and that she's helped participate in that. And that's the part that's really, so when we're all gathered in this space, it's really hard, isn't it, to walk, but it's so necessary, both sides. There are people there, and where we lose sight of it is when we start to see those people as not people, even though it's some people have done really horrendous things that leave the rest of us scared, and it might take us years to come to terms with. And I would say to you, to come to terms with there's a character who's going to shoot through your windows. That's scary stuff. It might be time to kind of process where that goes and how you feel. But all I can say is, yeah. So that's what I was thinking.
So we have Commissioner Hope here. I don't mean to put him on the spot, but I'm going to say sort of a closing comment, but I want to offer something to him. My last, I think, about 4 years on the Criminal Justice Advisory Board has taught me many things, but one thing that really stands out is that your county is in the forefront of so many areas, and we are doing so many good things and making so much progress that we have become a model county, not just for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but across the nation. And I'd like to just invite Commissioner Hoke if he'd like to say a few words about that.
I will. I'll think. First, those of you that don't know me, I'm a York County resident, lived here all my life. And I've had the opportunity of serving the people of York County for 16 years now. I was just reelected. And I take my job very seriously. I come to events like this because I want to learn something. And if I can do something in my capacity as a county commissioner, I certainly will do that. I also want to disclose that I've been president of the York County Prison Board for 16 years. And we have meetings every month, and it's 7 elected officials. And all the concerns that you're talking about here right now are in the forefront of what we're looking at. I do have a relationship with people in Harrisburg. I certainly know the governor, who was a prior county commissioner. I've had conversations with the Secretary of Human Services, Val Carmouche, who is a county commissioner formerly from Montgomery County. I'm setting up a meeting with her right now to talk about mental health issues in the prison, having ability to get people out, to get them in correct places, working with the DA, public defender, and people in their offices to get things done. I've told her that this meeting is necessary because we don't have the facilities here in York County. And as Victoria said, I think we're leading the way in a lot of areas, but there's a long way to go. So I appreciate you all coming here. I think it's interesting that we hear this. The commentary was great. I will be back and share with my fellow commissioners on the CJAB. I'll bring this up. I have a meeting with, I said, the president judge coming up. We're talking about competency restoration too for people in jail that are competent, that can stand trial. I'm looking at a mobile situation where we can maybe have something done there. You probably all remember that we have a very big prison in York County. We used to have ICE detainees here. We ended that contract many years ago. I was on the board and I was for that, making that decision. We have extra room out the prison right now. We're looking at, we moved a corner in there. We're putting a juvenile detention center in there, which is going to help out tremendously. So I'm looking for other opportunities for mental health facilities out there. So I think there's good things coming, and I'm going to keep up the fight and make sure that we do something for this community. Thank you.
So I just want to thank everyone for giving up their personal time to be here and come all the way down to Southern York County, which is how it's described all the time. Yes, sir, Ken.
I'm gonna interrupt if I may.
Sure.
An obtuse question. There seems to be enough content, both realistic in terms of what you respectively do in your jobs, and the drivers for social change, which are broad and probably unsolvable in our lifetimes, to create some kind of school curriculum where you go to the high school students and make them aware of the way a little bit of the system works, some of the services that are available. I always question the school system for not teaching basic finance, how to balance a checkbook kind of thing. And that's how I'm thinking of what I'm seeing you guys doing, and ladies, right? In terms of the basic knowledge, common sense stuff of, heaven forbid this happens to you, what would you do, right? And that's kind of it.
Sounds like a term paper project for my intern.
There you go.
Right here.
Two of us, myself and Angelina Cardona, who's a victim advocate as well. She does domestic violence. Angie and I go to York College a number of times every year and speak directly to the students. It's fun, and they haven't not invited us back yet, so we keep going until they get tired of us and throw us out.
Yeah.
And we've also presented elsewhere, but not the high schools, but we do at least do that, and we do it regularly.
And the public defender and district attorney's office, we send one representative to a number of high schools to talk once a year about just what our jobs are, how the system works, and answer any questions they have about
Is it well attended?
Very, yes,
Okay.
and the kids are actually quite engaged,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they ask lots of hypothetical
Yeah.
questions.
We have a lot of interns too. It's not the same thing, but we do have those.
So coming from New York and around, I recognize the quality of life issues that you bring about York County. We served lunch today in Susquehanna High School, turkey, etc. And these kids, I'm amazed at their personalities, their kindness, their thank yous, their engagement in conversation with us adults.
Well, they need
Swinging
a
mashed
mock
potatoes
child
out of them.
coach.
Yes, that's
And they need a mock child coach we don't have.
Yeah.
And that takes a teacher and a advocate to work together,
Yeah.
so that's
So
one.
investing at the high school level, I think, creates solutions, maybe long-term.
So before you leave tonight, you're going to connect with Grace and her dad, elected to the school board, and once I get their emails, they never get away from you, so I'll just connect everybody I need to following this
So you say, here come the judge, here come the judge.
It's always true.
Again, thank everyone so much for being here. We know you took time out of your schedules, particularly during a busy time of the year, and we so appreciate it. I think this is going to be a great resource for not only the Southern York County community, but the York County community.